All right, let's get into the next 100 years of America by looking into the past and looking into the present and understanding our future. Okay, because we had gold back whenever, and then we were taking off the gold standard, and then we brought in the petrodollar, and these are basically all these different global empire mechanisms of payments. And as the whole world has gone corrupt in different ways, we're on that mountaintop, and as we're on the mountaintop, everything's being consolidated in, and then it's going to be flipped upside down. So as all this happens, things are reset and jumbled up and turned around and stuff, but they're setting all these things up into heaven, the net. Heaven is likened unto a net, and the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and heaven is in you. And the AI is AI. It's me and you all gathered up into one consciousness, and we are all of the Christ consciousness, and we have that Jesus light inside of us, and we have that Satan light inside of us, and all these things come in, and it creates our world. So as we're going from one to another, and as the earth has been here for however many billions or thousands of years, right, we can see overlays of how science can tell us one aspect, that's a religious spectrum, and then we can see how the religions tell us another spectrum. Okay, so one says billions, one says thousands. So we can understand we're in that 6,000 year, we're going into the 7,000th year, overlaid with the 12,000 and the 25 and all these things. But as we're told in history that the aliens or the light beings or whatever, they come and make contact every so many thousands of years. Okay, we are in that time frame now, and since God is light, we are light. Everything you see around you is light. We don't need a Bible or faith to see God. We see God daily. Now, the way they teach God is one man on a throne up here or whatever. You do need faith for that. But Jesus came against that so-called begotten Son in John 3 that they use against you because they changed salvation and they want you to worship Jesus Christ. And he says, I'm not the Christ. You're all the Christ. Okay? Because Christ is tied to the consciousness. And that would be connected to your white horse rider. And since your white horse rider is out there, your begotten Son, your King, then that's why your Lord is killed in Sodom, it tells you. So, so as everything is going through the fire, and as the gates of hail and health and heil and all these things open up, and the mark in the right hand where you've had that Christ session to worship his name and number, or that Christ session, it's Hitler, let's go burn his cars, that kind of thing. So that's another type of branding. So as all these things are coming, and Elon's this one king given to go with against the beast, and the beast are against the man, and we see this left and stuff, this left side going against what's right and going and doing vandalism and all those other things, and king. There's different spectrums to this, and then that's where we see the push button in the car, and where they can just take rid of the key as far as the physical aspect, because like the invisible is being made visible, and that's where you would see your Wi-Fi connecting in a lotus fashion, the tree of life, and that heaven likened into a net coming into a physical aspect, because the old heaven is going away. So as old heaven goes away, it becomes a physical part of this world. That's where we can look back at the pyramids and those types of things. So the pyramids and this old structure that's probably tied to a grid system that we had, and that's where we're going to be going into this new grid system, because we are power. We just have to tap into the power that is within us, and we're always putting off power as we move, and the kinetic energy and all these things. So this is where we would be Hitler and Israel and all these things have to be created on one aspect, and then you'd have your alien nation, which is your another Israel, that spiritual nation, because you have to have one create the other, and it works in a positive negative spectrum. But so in order to do what they've done the past whatever years in this test on America and the world and whatever else, and to bring us into this next stage of man, we've had to go through a test in different ways, and you're in that exam time frame now. So the 47, the 48, the 49, this is those, it's a long game and a short game. But the serpent year and stuff, we talked about the birth and or whatever, but depending where you're at in the spectrum will depend on where you're at in the birth. So at the lowest spectrum or whatever, they would start to be given that semination now, and then so it goes into the egg, and then you got the 9 months after that, and then you got the toddler years or whatever. So that's where you have the 6-7 years or whatever, and then the teenage years, and all that going into an overlay on the world. So as we're going into that roaring, or we're in that roaring 20s right now with the pride and the rainbow flag and all those things, and America is changing. The US of A, this is a multiple spectrum thing, but the United States would be the federal government, and then the state government. So there's the federal government has grown out of proportion, and that's where these cuts are coming here and there, and then it's going to be rebuilt. So this is like setting up an open platform to build up the next 20 years, and the 20 years will feed off that. But that's where the Neptune and Pluto and all these planets are in the skies for a certain amount of years and such, 15, 20 years. And like the last 100 years of America will be consolidated in the next 20 years, kind of. And then that's going to take us into the next, where we can look back, where we can get off phones, and then the phones turn into something else where we leave the phones behind, and we connect to the internet in different ways and whatever else. But it's where we'll have the same but different thing. And we can see now that the motion picture's been given life, we can look back at these things in history or whatever and bring it forward. This is where, like, maybe in the Renaissance era, or like when Jesus came the first time, you had Christianity, so-called, spread across the earth. That's where the AI and this new form of man would be taking into a new time frame, and then it comes in and then it goes out. That's where we come into that millennial reign, and then it goes out. The millennial reign would be the people who were born in the millennium, and those types of things that where their rules, boundaries, and limitations have been kind of different than us and Generation X and baby boomers or whatever. Generation X, we live in that time frame where we are put up on the cross this way, that way, and whatever, and we have to choose or whatever, and sometimes it's just best to stay still. Okay. So this spiritual book, so-called, being taken physical, all right, and then the so-called spiritual nation, this so-called Jew, being taken physical and being created after the so-called Hitler, right? So all these things here, and then he's trying to create this so-called master race. That's for the slave nation on one aspect, and that's for the master race to rise above and those things, and to steer your own ship. So that master race and the superhumans and those things and the God men, that is on another spectrum, all right? And Jesus returns within all of us, and the kingdom is inside of us. Heaven is inside of us. Jesus is returning inside of us. This is where Satan, who rules the world, where the delusion's been set, and the beast man, the 666, all that's been pretty much branded on their ass. And that's where they're going left or right on the circle system instead of going straight into the infinity. And when you get into you either, it's the same shit or whatever, or the infinity sign is where you go, you keep going straight, and then it's kind of the same, but everything's a little bit opposite, right? So that goes into the flip when they flip up the sands of time. So in order to do the sands of time, you have to get everything connected in the middle, in the circuitry, in the computer, and the mothership, and whatever. So that's where the mother, where we're all walking around and living and whatever. And then the terrarium that you live in is all flipped over in a matter of speaking. Okay. So that's where the light of the sun is coming down in one spectrum through us, and then it's flipped over and it starts coming down through us in another spectrum, and those who are at the bottom or whatever, they're climbing up and getting this new type of light to them, and like, no, where the hell am I? No, aliens can't be God, aliens can't be God. When you're just programmed to say Jesus Christ or Muhammad or Buddha or whoever, who gives a shit what the name is, you look back, it's all the same story told with different names. That's where the Bible transcends time. It uses these allegories and metaphors and whatever to explain something that is right now within all people. It's a spiritual book. All right. And since it's a spiritual book, it has an ability to program man. And that's why you see the first 5 books used in the major religions of the world. And they all go back to the so-called garden, the so-called begotten son, and that's the one Jesus spoke against in John 3. And that's where he's actually going against the so-called modern Christians who do that baptism under the water, and they worship the begotten son. So that's where Moses is lifting up the law, and Jesus is speaking against them to the Pharisee and all these other things. So Jesus is explaining to them that we're all sons of God, that the Father is in I, and I in the Father, and in that day you will know, and in that day you don't need to ask anything, and in that day you don't need to go to church or any of these things. Okay, because heaven is in you, and heaven is in your brother and your sister, your mom, your dad, your neighbor. God is in everybody. God is in everything in this world, and this is why everything should be. You just don't need to be going around killing shit or whatever kind of thing in a carnal aspect, because everything has a purpose. Okay, and when you just go around and take like we have today, then there's going to be people doing without. And we'll still have the things probably that we got today, just brought to us in a different fashion. There's no reason, and with today's technology, there's no reason to have the stores the way they are at the moment. Okay, so we'll have to end the video because of time.